Welcome to Roland Garros Live with the team from Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. For 15 days, we'll have all the latest from Paris. Come and slide in to play with us on the Terre Battue. Well, hello and a warm welcome to everybody on RG Live, part of our Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach podcast. My name is Candy Reid, delighted once again to welcome in my co-host, Mark Gellard, coach of Magdalene. Mark, you posted a picture today, and the picture you posted was of a court which wasn't clay. It's grass court season.
Yeah, hey Candy, hey everyone. We had our clay court season ended a bit prematurely, but we're on the grass here in Poland. A beautiful grass court we have access to here in a place near Poznan. So it's about 30-minute drive from the center of Poznan. So we're really lucky to be getting that extra time on the grass. If anyone's interested, I think I put it on Instagram today, the pictures. So it's a beautiful setup. We're very lucky.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. It looks like it should be at the All England Club, this court. I was knocked out. We are going to speak, Mark. It is June the 4th, Wednesday, day 11 of Roland Garros, quarterfinal day, essentially in the singles. Some semi-final matches played in the mixed doubles. We'll talk about that as well. Lots to go over, lots to look forward to tomorrow. But let's start with you first, because like you said, the grass court season is beginning. And today I just saw the Berlin Open, which is a 500 level WTA event. And on the qualifying list, Ludmila Samsonova, Anna Kalinskaya, Ekaterina Alexandrova. That is bonkers. It's qualifying. Can you explain this?
No, I can't. It's a problem. It's a problem is what it is the way the tour's set up. It's a 500 event in Berlin, and yes. I believe they have 4 buys. I could be incorrect on that.
But I think you're right.
Buys in main draw, which I don't agree with for the grass season anyway. And I don't think the top players even want buys, right? They want match play. They want to get on the court and get some matches. Yes. So it's the only 500 that week, I believe now. The tournament at the same time would be that's maybe Nottingham, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. Which is a 250, isn't it? Because Birmingham's now 125.
Exactly. So the only 500 that week is Berlin. So it just loaded every single year. And I believe the year that we were closest to getting into the main draw, we were actually ranked 23 at the time, and we didn't make the cut because you have to add in the qualifiers and the wild cards and everything. So it gets a bit crazy.
That is bonkers. Now, usually on the podcast, we can hear a dog yapping. That's my little dog. Today, we can hear a cat meowing. What is going on there?
I am cat sitting for Magda right now, and he's a great cat, but he's very loud. And while we've started this recording, I've watched him. He hasn't quite mastered the litter box because he gets into the litter box with his front paws, but leaves his backside out and then goes to the toilet next to it. So, and
this is typical man, isn't it? I think we can say this. This is okay. I have a husband and a son, so I think that's fair from my experience.
Exactly. We use the toilet twice a day and the lino around the edge of it about another 5.
And then the woman comes around and cleans it all up. But
exactly. I'm just going to leave it and let Magda do it when she comes back.
Be a little present for her when she gets back. So that, I suppose, brings us on to our first point. Rather unfairly, I've been very sexist towards men, but there's been quite a lot of chat, hasn't there, about the women's matches not getting on in the evening session, particularly on Philippe Chatrier. The tournament director, Amélie Mauresmo, has defended it by saying we don't want any short matches. We want to give the night fans, the night ticket holders, something to cheer about. As it turns out, rather ironically, this year, a lot of the men's matches have been very short, particularly involving Carlos Alcaraz and Yannick Sinner, where a lot of the women's matches have actually been long and perhaps a bit more entertaining. So I just wondered your thoughts on this whole subject.
It's a tricky one. Probably if I was the director, I would be flip-flopping matches and doing one women's, one men's as more traditional way of doing it. But I understand her point. When I watched her interview, she was saying that, one men's match guarantees 3 sets. Even if they're relatively quick, it guarantees 3 sets. but it could be as many as 5. Whereas the women's matches, it could be over in 2 sets. So for ticket holders, they wanted to try and provide as much value as they can. I understand that side of it. It's probably not how I would have done it. I also think that Ronda Rousey was in the UFC, and there was an interview she did a while ago, and they asked her about why she doesn't get paid the same as the men, and she was quite clear that it's got to be based off of what you bring, value that you bring to the event. So I think it's a tough area to speak about, but I do think that I probably wouldn't have done it the way Maresmo's did, but I actually take my hat off to her and say, well, she's tried something and she's sticking to her guns, and good for her. Let's see how it works out. Let's see how the ratings do. Let's see how the sponsorships go, because ultimately, if the sponsors are wanting that, then they're the ones that are going to keep the tournament going. So it'd be interesting after the tournament to see what the numbers were.
And we know, don't we, that the French kind of do things their own way. We're talking about the Roland Garros COVID slam. If you remember that, they just changed the time, didn't they? And put it later on in the year. And it was just, c'est la vie. This is our decision. Let's go with it. And all the majors have the right to do that, I suppose. They've all got the right to put the matches when they want. And I mean, it is a discussion, but it's also nice, I think, for the women. Sabalenka said it was quite nice playing a little bit earlier because she had the rest of the afternoon off and she could actually kind of enjoy her evening. So there's a lot to be said for that. But I think we are missing the fact that perhaps women's tennis is not being showcased well enough, particularly as we've got some fabulous players, haven't we? Sabalenka and Swiatek will go head-to-head in one of the semi-finals. So that quickly brings us on to our next subject. Louis Bosson, who was accused of being a bit smelly earlier this year, that's how a lot of us came to know her, is into the semi-finals of her home major. It's her first major main draw. Earlier this year, Mark, in fact, in her first tournament of the year, she was playing a $30,000 event in Manchester in the United Kingdom and lost in her second match. Now she's into the semi-finals of Roland Garros. She's ranked outside the world's top 360. How do you explain this? Yeah,
this is one of those stories, not yet on the level of Raducanu, but it's approaching that. It's a little bit unfathomable, because when I did some research on her actually today, I wanted to see if she'd been a high-ranked junior and that this was maybe somebody that actually hadn't fulfilled their talent. She wasn't ranked high. I think her highest ranking in the juniors was about 170. The WTA ranking she currently has about 360. So this is a complete anomaly. This is an absolute outlier, and good for her. I mean, talk about, was she a wild card entrant into the tournament?
She was.
I mean, that's how you make the most of a wild card. I think what for her, what's happening a little bit when I watched her play, she's got a really nice game. She's obviously very comfortable on the clay. And I spoke to a few other coaches that told me a month ago, this girl is really a good player. But I think she's also in a moment right now where she'll look back on this in 5 years' time or 10 years and go, I can't believe what I did. But right now, while it's happening, she's almost a little bit sort of daydreaming through this, right? Yeah. She's not really paying attention. She doesn't realize how good Pegula is that she just beat. She doesn't realize how good who she beat today. Andreeva. She doesn't realize, and sometimes that's the best, right? Because she has no scar tissue from playing these players before and losing. She has nothing. She's playing with house money. So I think this is just an incredible. I mean, she's made more in this one 10 days so far than she'll have ever made in her life by a long way, I would think. So this is a really incredible effort from her, and I'm really excited for her I watched some of the match today, and she's a really aggressive, proactive player. She likes to use her forehand to open up the court, but her backhand's very, very solid as well. It's fun. It's exciting to watch, and it's nice to have these kinds of stories and get people talking.
It really is. Ranked 361, first ever major main draw, first French woman to reach the Final Four at Roland Garros since 2011. I've actually got some numbers from Hawkeye. The forehand, as you said, absolutely massive. She has the highest spin rate in the last 16. So it's hitting more spin on her forehand than anybody else on the WTA side. Does that surprise you?
I mean, it does surprise me because she's ranked 360. You would expect that she would be ranked higher with that. Obviously, when you're ranked that level and you're playing these matches, you are playing with house money, so to speak, and the pressure is so different to when maybe you're playing a 30,000 in Manchester or 35,000 in Manchester, where maybe you're supposed to win those, right? At 360, you're probably the number one seed or maybe number two. So it's a different pressure, and I think it's just snowballed. She's just gaining in confidence. People are getting more and more hesitant about knowing how to play her, and she's not many. It's not easy to scout players like this. There's not as much video available to see. People aren't really sure of how she plays. So it's really incredible from her. And I think I think what will be interesting to me is obviously how she does the rest of the tournament, but also what happens after this event. And does she take this moment and just run with it? Or was this the outlier week? I think it'll be really interesting to track her progress after.
And just describe what the feeling is when you're playing, and it's maybe a little hard because Magda's from Poland and there isn't a major, but perhaps playing in a tournament in Poland where you've got a huge amount of support. We've seen so many French players sort of flail and flag. I'm thinking Caroline Garcia didn't really like the pressure, did she? There's quite a few others that sort of succumb to playing at home in front of your home fans, but she just seems to enjoy it. How do you take that on? Is that a mindset? Is that something that people are used to and they're happy to show off? Or what is that? Do you learn to get better at that?
I think you can definitely learn to improve. I think from a how it feels standpoint, I wouldn't be able to tell you because I haven't been in that position as a player. But from a coach perspective, when I watch her play, I think it's different to Raducanu at Wimbledon or Coco at the US Open or Jessica at US Open, because going into that tournament, there's a lot of talk around them. There's a lot of people expecting they do well, saying they might be a favorite. Poisson, it's a completely different scenario, and it's one where she probably was thinking, if I could win a round, this would be an incredible week for me. Yeah. I'm going to pick up 150,000 euros, something like that, and the points, 70 points for winning a round, is more than she's going to have had in any previous tournament she's ever played. So I think that the pressure is very different, and probably the first couple of rounds she played on smaller courts, even though there would have been a nice French crowd supporting her. Whereas Garcia, she's going to be right away showcased on the bigger court. So I just think that coming into the tournament, there's a whole different expectation, and she's just growing with confidence. And I feel like watching the opponents playing her, everyone's just shrinking in front of her because they're panicking. Everyone is hitting the panic button against her really quick. I think next round she plays Coco, I think that will be where she, it's a pretty easy prediction. Of course, I'm not really putting myself on the line, but I think that will be where she comes unstuck a little bit because Coco will just have that too much experience to beat her there. As you would have said the same about Jessica as well, and Mira. But I think that probably that was as far as she'll go. But it's incredible.
Yeah, she'd take a semi-final, wouldn't she? And at her home major, just incredible. Powered back from a breakdown against Mira Andreeva in the second set. Won that 7-6, 6-3. So keeps the incredible story going for another round, at least. A very exciting proposition. I was actually just trying to look up her live ranking on the WTA. I'll come back to you when I find that. The first French woman, again, to reach the final four of Roland Garros since 2011. She will play Coco Gauff, absolutely right. Coco, of course, a finalist here back in 2022. She took out Madison Keys. On paper, anyway, she was expected to do this. But, of course, Keys, Mark, is the Australian Open champ. She's been playing brilliantly. Coco just seems to really love this surface, moves so well. What an athlete she is. And you're right, laser focused as well. Yeah,
I'm still... I was actually talking with Magda about this today. I don't think that Coco is playing her best tennis right now. I think she's obviously, like we've said before, and she's such a great competitor, and she's so good at being able to find ways to win.
Yeah.
When she's not playing her best, whereas I think Madison has got so much better at that as well. But I think on a clay court, she won't get quite as much help off the court as she would against Coco on maybe a hard court. So, it's incredible, really, and that's what great players can do. They can win when they are not playing their best, and I think she's definitely been able to do that And I think even Mira recently, I didn't feel that Mira's playing her best recently, but she's also been able to win a lot of matches, which is really a sign of a champion.
Yeah, Mira just, as we talked about, really struggled, didn't she, with the French fans going so nuts. Coco and Keys, it wasn't particularly pretty, was it? The match, 41 unforced errors from the racket of Goff, 60 from Keys, 6-7, 6-4, 6-1, 14 double faults as well, 101 unforced errors between them. Did they kind of just bring out sort of the worst of each other, do you think? Was it one of those where two friends, two players than the United States and a high stakes encounter?
I was going to say, I think it's always tough playing your compatriot. I think it's a really tough thing. And I think it's something that Americans, Australians, Brits, and the French probably have not a harder time, but it's tougher for them, right? Doing it on the bigger stages and the Grand Slams. Yeah. And especially the Americans, because there's so many of them in the top 100. So they're playing each other all the time. Look, tennis is a game of mistakes. Most tennis matches are going to end with 70% of points are going to end with an error. So 30% of the time, there's going to be winners. It could be aces, service winners, return winners, etc. But I think those two players, they play contrasting styles, and I think it was a match where you probably didn't see a high. I don't think you saw high quality from both players at the same time. There were moments where Madison played really well, and there were moments where Coco played really well, but there was not really many moments where they both played really well, which made the match sort of shows up in those stats.
This is a quote from Coco Gauff. It means a lot, especially getting through this tough match today. It wasn't easy. I'm very happy to get through it. She added, I'm so excited to be in the semi-finals back here again. Have a lot more work to do. Just savor this one today and next one tomorrow. She seems, Mark, and you know Coco very well, because I know obviously her and Magda played a lot. They practiced a lot. But she seems so relaxed and happy off the court. And then she kind of gets this laser focus, doesn't she, Coco? She's able to switch it on and off, which I don't know about you, but I personally couldn't do it. When I was playing a match and getting ready, again, not anywhere near this level, but I kind of had to get into my little intense moment and then just keep it throughout the match. But she seems to be able to do both. How does she do that? Is that her? Is that normal? Tell us more about that.
Well, I think, first of all, it's her environment. She's always had that from a very young age. And I remember living in Florida, she was always the talk of the town from a very young age. She was winning, the under 12s or the under 14s when she was 2 or 3 years younger than everyone else playing. So she's always had that, that's just her innate, idiosyncratic way of behaving. She's a natural competitor. She loves to compete. She loves to fight and win, which is what for me is winning her matches right now more than her tennis. I don't think she's playing amazing tennis. And if she's listening, that doesn't mean that's not an insult. That's a compliment, because if you can go finals of Madrid, finals of Rome, semi-finals so far of French, and I think she might even say, look, I'm probably not playing the best I've played right now, but she's competing so well. And that's something that I think, the Serena, Maria Sharapova, those players had when they played. And that's something very hard to teach. Everyone's good when they play well. Tennis is easy when you're playing well. It's trying to figure out how to do that when you're not playing well and find solutions real time.
Yeah, we had Brian Shelton on the podcast yesterday. You're welcome, everybody, if you're watching, to go back to our YouTube website, DOAPTC, Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach, and watch with Brian. But he was saying, with the forehand as it is and with the serve, Coco can win Roland Garros because, like you added, Mark, she's such an unbelievable competitor. And she will just keep going, won't she, until the end of the match with her shaking hands. It's a remarkable thing to have. And she's got a very good chance. We'll take on Louis Bosson in the semi-finals. Let's talk about now the other semi-final, Aryna Sabalenka versus...
Sorry, again, I want to add on that. One thing that I was talking to a friend today after listening to Brian's podcast with you last night. He is not given enough credit for his coaching resume, winning the, let me get this right way around, winning the women's NCAAs with Georgia Tech. And winning men's NCAAs with Florida.
University of
Florida. And then, obviously, I know Ben's had other coaches, I'm sure, throughout the years, but Brian's been the main person behind that. The diversity in that resume is incredible. From a school like Georgia Tech, which wasn't a powerhouse, to win the NCAAs with the women's team, and then go down to Florida, where there's that different pressure of expectation to win it, and he wins it with the men. And then at the same time, I mean, it's unbelievable, really.
It's unbelievable. So when I went to University of Tennessee, I was recruited by Georgia Tech. He wasn't the coach. It was a female. And I think they were outside the top 50, which is why I turned them down. And then he got the job when I was finishing up at Tennessee. And then I started working at CNN, which is when I met him. So I met him early 2000s and his team just took off. I think he had a couple of players that won NCAAs on the women's side. Then you're right, went down to Florida, won the team event, won the individuals at Florida. Just incredible, and the nicest guy in the world. He really is. He's so generous with his time, always happy to smile, and he tells great stories about Ben as well, many of which we won't repeat. But
yeah, and on top of being nice, he was, I mean, a hell of a player as well. So he can coach and come at it as well from a player's perspective. He played Wimbledon. I remember watching him play Michael Stich and beating him at Wimbledon in about '94, something like that.
Yeah, so good. And some of his answers are just phenomenal. Obviously, he mentioned Coco Gauff and Madison Keys, who he likes very much. You know, he talked about how amazing the Iga Swiatek 26 match streak here at Roland Garros is. Mentioned all the men as well. And I don't know if you saw that funny bit. I've taken a little short video, but he was saying before Ben Shelton and Alcaraz's round of 16 match at Roland Garros, right minutes before, they were literally sitting together in the locker room talking Champions League football and laughing and then taking the mickey out of each other's clothes and just because they're such good friends. But that's the kind of boy that Ben is, because he's got such great parents, great sister, great family unit. He's so relaxed and chilled.
It's amazing. I don't think, you know, they say men are more easy. It's easier for men to be like that. Maybe in general, but I couldn't have done that. There's no way I could be that kind of person that is able to switch on and switch off like that. I almost, but when I look at Ben play on the court as a great player, to me, he has this, he puts almost a chip on his shoulder. He plays with this little, I don't know what it is. Yes, he has this sort of edge to him. And it's like, you know, that's what he uses as a fuel for him.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Kyrgios is a completely different way, and Rafa is a completely different way to that. So he kind of has that edge to him, that little bit of nastiness almost once he gets on the court. That's how it looks to me. You know, it's like, no, I'm not going to let you beat me kind of thing. So
yeah, competitor at heart. Remember the phone incident with Novak
exactly.
at the US Open? Yeah, he likes that stuff, doesn't he? And what an entertainer. What a massive game. We were also speaking, Brian said a lot of analysts, particularly in America, on the big points, they're like, go for the big 140, 150. But he said, actually, the second serve lefty kick works much better against the Sinners and Alcarazes than the big fast one. They just put the big fast one down at his shoelaces. The big kick is much harder to deal with.
Yeah, and also I did hear that comment, and I was actually thinking about it today when we were out practicing serves with Magda today, and it's one of those things that you say as a theory, why doesn't he do it? But also, it's physically almost impossible. The amount of energy and power that you use up having to deliver a serve that's fast, to do that every time over 2, 3, 4 sets. You can't sustain that, you know, because you're going to miss a higher percentage. So you're going to be serving 2 serves per point rather than 1 very often. So it's physically, I don't think it's possible either.
Yeah. And of course, he's still only 22. He's got to prolong that shoulder. We know in baseball, say they pitch 3 out of 3 games, 1 out of 5 games. They don't play all the time.
Absolutely. He's going to have to manage that. And, you know, maybe in 50, 100 years' time, players will be serving routinely. I think it will go that way. I mean, I really believe that all sports records will be eaten up at some point. I mean, I know we had this conversation with John Williams the other night, who stands by Rafa's 14 slams probably not being broken. I believe they will. I believe there's no record in sports right now that won't be broken. It just won't be anywhere near our lifetime. But it's incredible the power he can do, and being left-handed just adds to the difficulty return.
Well, it's probably true what you say, because you look at the technology in athletics, don't you? You've got the new shoes, or in swimming, you've got the new swimsuit, and then records can be broken that way. I mean, the tennis rackets are going to be developed, aren't they? The strings, everything's going to get more powerful. It's going to be absolutely astonishing. And I do believe that I think all commentary will be AI in the future. So people like me will be out of a job. Hopefully not AI tennis players.
The argument I've had with a lot of coaches and people listening will think I'm really crazy now, but the racket, the evolution of technology in the rackets is obvious, in the strings. There's no question about that. I'm not denying that. But what I do deny is that you'll hear a lot of the older players, whether it's John McEnroe, players that played in the 80s with wooden rackets, talking about, back then we had to play a flatter game because the rackets and the strings didn't allow it, which for me is not right. If you take a wooden racket to the academy, I've worked in academies before and I've had a wooden racket, and you give it to a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy that can play well, I must admit I've mainly done it with boys, doesn't change anything for them. They will still hit open stance swings using a semi-Western grip, and there will still be a ton of spin on the ball. Now, yes, it may be a little harder, or you may not get as much speed on the ball or as much power, but it's incredible how quickly they adapt to that racket, and they don't change their technique. They don't adapt technically. They just, they make some other adjustments to the racket. So I think even if you'd have given the way we taught tennis 30, 20 years ago was different. The fundamental concepts are so different now. I mean, you watch 20 years ago, everyone was hitting closed stance, linear swings, flat, 20, 30 years ago. But now it's a different way. And the kids, if you give them now a good player, 14, 15-year-old, he'll play exactly the same with a wooden racket. It won't be as easy, and there may be more mistakes, but they're still going to create spin. They're not going to change their grip. They're not going to suddenly be closed stance. So I think it's interesting, the evolution of the game. But I think the technology, like you said, has changed a lot, and it will continue to change. But what's going to change more than that for me will be, how do we teach tennis in 30 years from now? What difference will we do there?
And what do you see if you had to kind of have a premonition about what you think is going to happen?
I think if you watch the players that are ranked 400, 500 versus the players that are ranked top 100, and then you go 50, 20, 10, if you look at the differences, it's almost like looking at a timeline. So the players that are ranked 500 are like looking 10 years ago, and the players that are ranked top 100 are like looking into the future. It's a little bit of if I make sense. What separates, if you watch a player 500 versus a player 100 hitting, the first thing you're going to notice is the speed of the ball. The speed of the ball is just, it gets faster and faster as you go up levels. And so as we continue progressing in another 20 or 30 years, maybe not Ben Shelton's speed, but the speed of everything is going to be faster. Everyone's going to be serving faster in 20 years, 30 years. And then a secondary thing that if you pay attention to between lower ranked and higher ranked players is the movement, the athleticism. They're such good athletes now. Before, it was about being such a good tennis player. And I think players like Coco are showing, we've talked about this before when Ian was working with us. It's almost like, Iga moves as a tennis player. Coco moves as an athlete. And so I think that the athleticism is just going to get better and better. We're going to be recruiting better athletes instead of better athletes going into football or basketball or baseball or hockey. Hopefully we'll start getting some of the best athletes playing tennis, and then you'll start seeing the needle move in that direction. But speed of the ball and athleticism will just keep getting better and better.
And that was what Brian said about why there's been so much US success, particularly at Roland Garros on the men's side and the women's side. He just said these guys are supreme athletes, and that is what has changed, which I thought was fascinating, because of course the US, with such numbers, got over 300 million people, you've got opportunities, haven't you? And maybe tennis in the US hasn't been the sexy sport, a lot of people going to baseball, basketball, NFL, but now perhaps tennis is opening up a few more doors with such big players.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the best athletes in the future, I don't know if tennis will ever be the number one place. I think the best athletes in the States typically look at basketball and football because they're the most lucrative sports.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest to access as well, right? They require less money. You don't need all the equipment, the coaching as much. And there's more players that can gain a big amount of money, right? You have hundreds of players in the NFL or NBA that are making great money, whereas in tennis it's not the same. But I remember when I first started as a hitting partner for Martina Hingis, and her sort of sentiment was, it was to a point where I may be a smarter tennis player, and I'm not saying she said this, but this was the interpretation. I may be a smarter tennis player than Venus or Serena. I may move better. I may have more diversity in my game. I can slice, I can spin, I can do the X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't matter anymore because that part of tennis is kind of gone, right? Yeah. It's about power, and the days of, hey, if you're 5 feet behind the baseline, roll the ball cross court, that's gone. Now it's, you need to be able to hit the ball hard as you can from any position on the court to any point on the court.
Correct.
And that's the way it is now. So, being before 20 years ago, before Venus and Serena on the women's side came, you could win by being crafty, having a good slice, having good movement. But when they came along, it didn't matter. You were never going to be able to move faster than Serena could hit the ball. So
correct.
It changed everything.
And that brings us perfectly on, doesn't it, to the other semi-final, because you'd put Aryna Sabalenka in that category. Just massive hitter. The shoulders are unbelievable. When you look at her from behind, it's incredible. She's going to take on Iga Swiatek. Swiatek, of course, on that 26-match winning run here at Roland Garros, 4-time titleist. She's won the last 3 titles. Do you have any sort of idea of which way that one is going to go, if you had to guess?
I would probably pick Aryna, but okay. That's just a gut feel. I just think, I think Iga may have actually just turned a corner the last couple of days. I think beating Rybakina was big for her, and then obviously getting through against Svitolina was one that I expected her. I think that the bigger challenge for her was the Rybakina one. Not that Svitolina is not a good player, of course, but she just didn't have the firepower, I don't think, to hurt Iga. And I think she'd actually had a couple of tough 3-setters in the rounds before, which may have fatigued her. But I think that Aryna is just, she's really dialed in and she knows how to win. And although Iga's turned a corner, I think it might be, she may start doing better on the US Open time, and that might be one she wins, if she can continue this form. But I still would put Aryna as the winner for this one.
Okay. They played a lot before. Let's just have a look. 9-4 in favour of Swiatek. Their most recent meeting was in Cincinnati, 3-3 for Sabalenka. That was on the hard. The last clay court result went the way of the Pole, Swiatek, 2-3. That was at last year's Rome. So difficult to tell, but Swiatek does have quite a big lead in the head-to-head. Although, of course, Sabalenka, the world number one, has had a phenomenal season and got to the final, didn't she, of the Australian Open. Best she's done here, though, Mark, a semi-final. That was in 23. So even though Swiatek's won 4 times before, you're still just edging Sabalenka.
Yeah, and I don't know if it plays on Aryna's mind. I don't know how she operates, but I think she will be very aware of the career Grand Slam in the back of her mind. Okay. And even if she might not admit it, I think that she's in a semi-final. Iga's been the big problem for everybody for the last 4 or 5 years. She's still a big problem. She's just maybe not as big of a problem as she was. And if you were ever going to have a chance to maybe beat her, this would probably be it. So this is a big moment for her, and I believe that whoever wins this will win the tournament, whether it's Iga or Aryna.
All right. And just before we get on to the ATP side, Louise Bosson, the Frenchwoman, had a career high 65 in the live rankings. I just looked it up. If she beats Coco in the semi-final, she's going to move to world number 35. That's not a bad ranking rise from 361 at the beginning of the year. But you've seen that, Mark, when Magda got to the semi-finals a couple of years ago at the Australian Open, bumped her into the world's top 20. And your life just changes, doesn't it?
Her life really changed, I think, in that she got a lot of media attention. My life, nobody seems to ask me for any autographs, but it was good. What's been interesting with that was that it did change, but I would say it changed more a year later. I think,
Okay.
it took time for everyone to sort of take note of it, and that's when maybe a few more companies or people started having an interest in
Yeah.
working with Magda or doing things. But it was really a big moment for her, and I think that's one that I'm not jealous of Louise at all this week, but I'm very envious of her achievement, because it's a moment that we had that you that's why you do what you do. It was such an incredible moment for us, and we didn't even win the tournament, but making that semi-finals, I remember the feeling that you carried with you after that for the next couple of months, and it was really a fun feeling. And I'm sure she's gonna, when this is all over, she'll sit back and really realize how great this is.
Yeah, but this is not the time, is it? She's got to focus on playing Coco Gauff and the other semi-final, Sabalenka versus Swiatek. Let's get on to the men's results so far today. This was quite a funny quote from Alexander Bublik. He was playing Yannick Sinner, and I believe that he'd booked his flight out of Roland Garros. He said he's ready for a bit of a holiday. He called himself, here we go, he called himself Booby. So here's the quote. To be fair, the guy is a robot. What do you expect of me? No chance I will win a set. I made good money this week and I've booked a flight to America. Booby needs a vacation. I've always wanted to see the Grand Canyon. That is perfect, Bublik, isn't it?
It's exactly, that's him. That's him. You don't need to say anymore. You don't need to say anymore. I mean, he's very. I actually watched some of the second set today, and he had a chance in that second set to maybe pull that one through. But and I was impressed with how well he was playing. But you're playing, like you said, a machine right now.
Yeah. Absolutely crazy. Here's the quote up. If you're watching on YouTube, we're on Roland Garros Live. Bublik did so well, didn't he? Beat Jack Draper in that tremendous match. But against Yannick Sinner, well, there was only going to be one winner. And I was just looking at Sinner's results, Mark. Of course, he hasn't played a full season yet. 17-1. He's lost just one match. That was to Alcaraz at the final of Rome. He won the Australian Open, final of Rome, now into the semi-finals of Roland Garros. Hasn't lost a set. He's beaten Artur Rindignesh, Richard Gasquet, Jerzy Lehechka, Andrei Rublev, and Alexander Bublik. It's absolutely ridiculous. One of our former guests, Chris Clary, posted this. Round one, Rindignesh got 12 games, Gasquet got 7, Lehechka got 3 games, Rublev got 8, and Bublik's got 6. So it's not about who wins a set against Sinner, it's just how many games they win. That's what we're marking Sinner on now. Crazy.
No, he's taken the sport to the next level, really. I mean, what he's doing is, it's he has been number one. Am I right? He was number one.
Yeah.
He whenever you're number one, you every number one that comes in, whether it's the male or the female tour, they do something different. They bring something new to the game. Whether it's Andy Roddick bringing that big serve at the time, that changed everything, right? He was a monster server. Whether it was Agassi's returns, whether it was, Serena's power from all parts. And it seems to me like just when we thought things couldn't get much better than Novak, it does seem like he's able to do what Novak can do, but also he's younger. He seems to be even more efficient on the court, and he serves better. I think his serve is a bigger weapon than Novak's was. It's incredible.
It is absolutely bonkers, and he's, of course, sinewy. He's just full of muscle. And something that came up in the Roland Garros Live podcast earlier in the week was the fact that he's taken 3 months off. It's been enforced, of course, but now the guy is a machine. He's got plenty of energy for the second half of the season, where we've seen likes of Casper Ruud and Alex de Minaur complain a little bit about being tired, the length of the season. And now Sinner, I mean, in my mind, and I picked him right at the beginning, I just think he's going to be, talking of robots, an absolute machine for the rest of the year, and he's going to be so tough to beat.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that was my pick from the start. I think even though Alcaraz on the clay has beaten him, I think that I just feel that this is Sinner's tournament to lose now. I don't see him being beaten. I thought he did look a little bit shaky at moments in the second set today, but he, even if he'd lost that second set, it wasn't going to change the outcome of the match. And he's a great. One thing, if you look at Novak, if you look at Sinner, these guys, this is the the physique that they have is really what you want in tennis, right? We don't need muscle mass. We don't need big muscles. We need power. We need elasticity, and we need the ability to move. And so these guys are just, the way that him and Novak are both so relaxed, so loose when they play. They're so agile and able to create power very, very easily. That's the sort of template for a great physique now.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of Novak, he is currently on court against Alexander Zverev. A lot of people were touting this as the match of the night, and it might just well be. Zverev is up a set, but Novak has the break in set 2, 3-1, and serving for a player who's won this title 3 times before, looking, of course, for major title number 25. Obviously, we've got Sinner and Alcaraz still in play. It's going to be difficult, isn't it, for either the winner of this one to actually lift the title?
Yeah, it's so tough. But I mean, how can you we had Olga on here the other night talking about, she'd worked, she knows Zverev very well and how hungry he is to try and get that monkey off his back and win a slam for the first time. And then, I think that if you count Novak out of anything, you're a fool, because he's shown time and time again what he's capable of. And shame on us if we don't think he can win this tournament, because he can. I mean, there's nobody that knows more than him about how to win a match, especially in a big moment. And only, less than a year ago, right, he wins the Olympic gold on that court. So he's in there with a massive chance. But I think the only thing I'm concerned about is if this does go long, this match for him, and even if he gets through it, but it takes a lot out of the tank, that's where it could be concerning. But he was incredible as well. As I don't think he's had a particularly good lead up to the French Open. I think his results have been very average. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think
he won Geneva, but apart from that, you're absolutely right. But for Novak,
for Novak, nothing in Madrid, nothing in Rome, nothing in Monaco.
Monte Carlo. He didn't play Rome because he pulled out, but he lost his opening match in Monte Carlo and in Madrid.
Yeah, so it wasn't a particularly noteworthy clay court season for him, but it doesn't matter, because those top players, when they get to the big show, they know how to turn things on, and whatever's happened in the last week, 2 weeks is irrelevant.
Yeah, and I think you're right with the Olympic gold, even though that was best of 3, wasn't it? But he has good memories on this court. This could be just one last big kick, couldn't it, to win number 25. We're hearing sort of murmurs and rumours from people around his camp that this possibly could be the last year. I think he probably wants to do some other stuff. Maybe he's lost a little motivation. If he wins here, maybe this will be the last one. So Novak up against Sasha Zverev as we speak, a set to Zverev. That's the first set that Novak has lost all tournament long, but the Serb does have the break in set 2. The winner of that will play Jannik Sinner. And then in the other semi-final, we've got Alcaraz versus Musetti. I wonder if you saw the Musetti kick the ball that hits the linesperson, and what you thought about that. He was playing Francis Tiafoe at the time. To my mind, it was completely innocuous, and I just think things like that there should be some common sense ruled. Again, with Mio Kato, you might remember that incident at Roland Garros a couple of years ago. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous that she got disqualified for that. Of course, then Novak fans will bring up the time that he got disqualified from Roland Garros all those years ago. It's such a tricky one, but I just think common sense has to be used. What do you think, Mark?
I think you've answered it, really. I think the problem is, I think that a lot of people in the tennis world are trying to remove any subjectivity, and they want a zero tolerance policy. Yeah. You hit the ball in any direction and it makes contact with anyone, you're an automatic default. I think that's it's lazy, it's unnecessary, and also ultimately it would be a loss to the sport, because of all the people that bought tickets there today. Do they want to see that? Do they want to see that a great match ended because of something like that? Now maybe we could talk about, they could impose some slightly different rules. There should be maybe immediately that's going to be a fine, of whatever. But and maybe they can, maybe at the time they could implement a warning and a point penalty, or even a game penalty. I don't have a problem with that if that's how they feel. But to suggest that should be the end of the match because of a kick on a ball that was, like you said, innocuous. It's very, very different to the Novak Australian Open. What was it? Australian Open, I think it was, or US
Was
Open.
it Aussie Open?
I can't remember. One of those where he that was different. That was a more violent, sort of vicious hit, and that was sort of that was reckless, and it
he was
endanger
angry.
somebody. And yes, then probably the right thing to do there was. But what we don't want to do is remove any subjectivity and common sense. And if I think that what should happen is that referee, the umpire on that match with Musetti and Tiafoe, should be commended for making the right decision. Because if he made the wrong decision, we'd all be destroying him. He made the right decision based on common sense. I saw Francis's interview afterwards where he said it was comical that he wasn't defaulted. I don't agree with that at all. I think, but I also think that that's where the ATP, WTA haven't done a good enough job explaining or being clear with the players about what they're wanting and what the rules are on that. You know, they keep talking about this zero tolerance, but ultimately a zero tolerance policy wouldn't work and it wouldn't be a smart move. So using some common sense and letting the referee or the umpire, make the right call is the way to go. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And just looking up the Novak incident, it was the US Open in 2020. He hit a ball at a line judge in the fourth round match against Pablo Carreño Busta. It hit her in the throat, didn't it? And he got DQ'd for that one. So that's a blast from the past. Not a fun one, but one of those things that does happen. Just looking at the mixed doubles, we're going to have the mixed doubles final coming up. Andrea Vavasori and Sara Errani, who won the US Open last year, will take on Taylor Townsend and Evan King of the United States. So it's Italy versus the USA. Of course, Taylor Townsend, coached by John Williams, who's been on RG Live a couple of times already over the past 10 days or something. So that should be a good final. Then in the men's doubles, Hugo Nice and Edward Roger Vasselin will take on Granollers and Tobias. That's one semi-final. Joe Salisbury and Neil Skupski will take on Harrison and King. So Britain versus USA in the other men's semi-final. Evan King doing rather well because he's in contention with both. And let's just have a quick look at the women's doubles. Danila and Krunic. I think they beat Magda, didn't they? And Bernarda Pera. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, it seems like we had another good draw there.
Yeah. Yeah, they are doing rather well. They've beaten your players, Bernarda Pera and Lynette. They've beaten Mohammed and Schurz 4-love. Today, they beat Siniakova and Townsend in 3. They're going to play Aikiri and Hozumi, Norwegian-Japanese combo. And in the other semi-final, Mira Andreeva still has a chance to win this title. She's up against or with Diana Schneider taking on the Italians Arani and Paolini. You do seem to get some really bad draws, Mark. What's going on?
Yeah, or we just seem to put people, give people some confidence. But that was, I have to say, I think that Taylor Townsend and Siniakova that's a hell of a team.
They're a great team.
I think it would be not unfair to say that Siniakova is probably the best doubles player in the world, and Taylor's probably right there, 1 or 2 spots behind her. So, really tough team.
We're seeing an ear. There we go. The most beautiful cat in the world. I think Taylor Swift may disagree, but I think Magda's cat wins the battle by a paw.
I'm on cat sitting duty.
Well, hopefully he is getting the right end in the litter box. Mark, anything to add? I think we've been through all the matches today. We've given you an update on the Novak and Sasha Zverev match. We've talked a little bit about the matches coming up tomorrow. Let's just finish off with this then. You think Sinner and you think Sabalenka, is that still the call for the singles?
Yeah, I'm not going to back down. I hedged my bets early and I will stick with those. I would stick with those. And I will encourage everyone to keep checking out our daily edition and also follow us on Twitter or X and check out our YouTube. And please keep following us, our regular DOAPTC weekly.
Yeah, we've got a couple of podcasts coming up. Taped one with Alex Delguru a Romanian player now, has become a commentator, and also Manny Diaz, the legendary University of Georgia coach, spent 34 plus years as head coach there, coached the likes of Ethan Quinn, who did really well at Roland Garros, John Isner, and that's just a few of them. 30-something years in charge of the University of Tennessee. That is a good gig, and what a great guy. And his son, Mark, Eric Diaz, of course, is the coach formerly of Alex Mickelson and now of Lerner Tien. So good genes in that family.
Yeah, what he did at Georgia. I mean, I played at South Alabama, and we used to play up at University of Georgia in the fall tournament there and they had some great players up there going. When I was playing, John Isner was their number one. So they had that facility at Georgia, the program, the culture, the history. It's incredible. I mean, I think it was Michael Pernfors played there back in the day. They have the center court there, Michael Pernfors. So yeah, they have a great culture at that university. It's a hell of a school.
Yeah, so he is on Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach coming up in a couple of weeks. Meantime, we'll keep going with RG Live through the conclusion of the clay court major. Will Mark's picks be right? Sinner and Sabalenka, I think at this point, I probably agree with you. All right, that will do it from us. Mark, thank you very much for your time. Go and work out the cat litter job, and I will get a full report, I'm sure, tomorrow.
Thanks, Candy. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thank you for watching Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. Please like, subscribe and share, and we'll be back soon with another great episode.